Hello everybody, it is your old friend Philtastic Phil here, and welcome back to Philtastic Comics and Art. I just have a quick little video here for you today. I have to admit, this is not the video I expected to film at all. I had a totally different idea planned, but my wife and I just wrapped up watching the Falcon and Winter Soldier, the latest episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus the other night, and I've got some ideas and a lot of good things brewing here. I'm not one who likes to make spec videos at all, so do not take my word as God. Do not go out and buy hundreds of copies or multiple copies, let's say, of comics you wouldn't have otherwise bought just based on my say-so. This is just my opinion, and yet, to be honest with you, spec videos are not my favorite to make or to watch at all. And yes, I know I did make a spec video about Wanda Vision in the past, and yes, I was one of those thousands or millions of people, I guess, however any people watched that series, that thought Mephisto was popping up. Spoiler, he didn't, but we will see him soon. I'm pretty confident about that. I'm going to go ahead and I'll put a link to that video in the description of this video. So if you haven't seen that already, go ahead and click on that. You can see exactly how well I did or how poorly I did, depending on your perspective. Now, as far as this video goes, I firmly believe that this last episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier has opened up not one, not two, but three possible places that the MCU can go from here, including a drastically different Avengers team than what we've seen in the MCU or on the streaming services. Just a quick note, I'm going to be putting a lot of spoilers in here, not only for the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, but also some of the upcoming Marvel Disney Plus series. Also, whether it is your first time visiting this channel or the 10th time, if you haven't done so already, I'd like to formally invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the great content that I've got coming up in the days, months, weeks, and years, something like that, to follow. Also, if you wouldn't mind, please go ahead and give me a like. And if you agree or disagree with my analysis here and my specking, go ahead and leave a comment. I'd love to mix it up with you and have a good discussion. Okay, so just to reiterate, if you do not want to hear any spoilers, now is the time to pause the video, go ahead and catch up on anything you need to catch up on, and then come back to it. Again, this is your last chance to pause the video and catch up if you need to. Okay, now that that's out of the way, I'm first going to define what is not going to be in this video. You're not going to see anything that is pretty obvious that's already happened already. In other words, you're not going to see Sam Wilson taking over as Captain America, which I think you're going to see within the next episode or two. The end of this episode pretty much pointed to that. We're not going to discuss John Walker finally turning heel and becoming the U.S. agent. We already saw that in the post-credit scene of that last episode. Again, a great episode. You're not going to see Danny or Daniel taking over as Falcon. Again, we saw that in the last couple scenes. If you're one of those people who spec to buy books and flip them, well, if you don't own these books already, you might already be kind of out of luck. You know, they're probably at the high end already. I really think the best advice, or the most solid advice you can get, really from any collector's perspective, from my perspective at least, is something I heard from Chris at We Love Comics, and I'll put a link to his channel in here too. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he says, collect what you like and you could never go wrong. So before I get into that, I think it's important that we paint where I think we are right now in the MCU following Endgame. And I'm basing this solely on what I've seen in Wanda Vision and what I'm seeing here in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. To me, it's apparent that there are no Avengers right now. We don't know the status of this Avengers team, so I'm guessing that they're simply not together. Now, keeping this in mind, let's look towards the end of this particular episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, when Bucky finally catches up to Zemo at the Sokovia Memorial. He brings with him the Black Panther's all-female Royal Guard, the Dora Milaje. And we're all expecting them to just execute him on the spot. Zemo even was kind of expecting that. I think that's why he was waiting at that memorial, to be honest with you. But rather than do that, they tell him that they're taking him to the Raft. So, what is the Raft? Now, fans of the Marvel Comics Avengers series may remember a time that followed the Avengers Disassembled storyline written by Bendis. At this time in the Marvel Universe, there were no Avengers. Fast forward a couple of months, and a book called The New Avengers popped up on the market. And in this book, we were introduced to the Raft maximum security prison, located right near Rikers Island. It was like an island next to an island. Now, the whole idea behind the Raft was it was like a Rikers Island, but for superpowered criminals. So, in other words, you have every, or most of, let's say, the superpowered criminals in the Marvel Universe being held in one facility, which happens to be a stone throw from New York City. In retrospect, this probably was not the best idea. And of course, the inevitable happens. The villains are broken free of the prison by Electro, Spider-Man's villain. But luckily, not all of them escaped. They were stopped by a small combined force of heroes consisting of Captain America, Spider-Man, Jessica Jones, also known as Spider-Woman, no relation, Luke Cage, and Matt Murdock, also known as Daredevil. And this event helped both Captain America and Iron Man realize they needed an Avengers team now more than ever. And this led to the new comic book series, The New Avengers, with characters like Iron Man, Captain America, and Black Widow being taken off the board, and new characters recently being acquired by Disney, like Wolverine and the X-Men. I think that they are setting up the Raft again to have a mass insurrection. And I think that they are setting up a new Avengers team. With who and with which characters is still up in the air at this point. Whether I'm right and it does lead to the formation and introduction of a brand new Avengers team, or whether it sets something else up entirely like, let's say, the Thunderbolts, one thing is clear, the Raft exists and Zemo is there. Either way, go ahead and grab a copy of New Avengers #1, whether you're speccing on it for financial purposes or just for a good read. It's easily accessible. You could find it either online or in your local comic book store, and even a trade paperback form. Definitely a great read, and it was a great ushering in of the new chapter, of the next chapter, let's say, of the Avengers team. The next theory I have, tied into the latest episode of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, not only includes a cameo that we saw in this episode, and chances are you know who I'm talking about already, but it also encompasses some speculation we heard just this past week about the upcoming Spider-Man film, No Way Home. Now, No Way Home itself sounds like it's going to be just something incredibly wild. It's been confirmed that Alfred Molina will be reprising his role as Dr. Octopus from the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films. It's also been confirmed that Jamie Foxx will be once again reprising his role as Electro from the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, or as I prefer to call them, the Twilight Spider-Man. It has also been theorized that Peter's good buddy Ned, who lost a ton of weight for this picture, may be becoming the villainous Hobgoblin, classic Amazing Spider-Man villain that really is, I think, one of the more terrifying ones, visually at least. It was also reported this week, or rumored, why don't we say, that Willem Dafoe, who played Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin, also back in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films, will be reprising his role, or at least has been seen on set, the MCU. So, why is that big, considering this most recent episode of The Falcon and Winter Soldier? Let's go back to that cameo. In case you haven't seen the spoiler, haven't seen the episode itself, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, known for her roles as Elaine from Seinfeld and on Veep, of course, appeared in this episode following John Walker's trial and introduced herself as Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, also known in the comic books, of course, as Madame Hydra. The Contessa has often found herself at ends with Nick Fury, remember him from S.H.I.E.L.D., Samuel L. Jackson in the series. That being said, I don't think the Contessa is going to be acting quite like the Contessa that we're used to. She's not going to be like a super spy type of villain. And my only gut feeling on this has to do, as silly as this sounds, with her hairstyle. Those who have seen the episode may recall that she had a purple streak in her hair. So once again, going back to the source material, the comics, specifically the Bendis era of the Avengers comics, there was a character by the name of Victoria Hand who acted as Norman Osborn's right-hand woman. And when she appeared, she was often in a very smart-looking business suit with a signature purple streak in her hair. But considering that we have Contessa, and again, in my belief, working as Victoria Hand, and possibly Norman Osborn coming to the MCU, I do feel there is a very, very good chance that we'll be seeing the Dark Avengers come into the MCU relatively soon. For those of you not familiar with the Dark Avengers, basically when Secret Invasion, which again is going to be a Disney Plus series, concluded, Norman Osborn was credited for killing the Skrull Queen and thus ending the invasion. He quickly took over Tony Stark's position with the U.S. government and pretty much put the Avengers on notice that they were now enemies of the state. But even further than that, he won the hearts and minds of the public by assembling his very own Avengers team. Little did anybody know at the time, but they actually consisted mainly of some of the most devious and villainous Marvel villains. For example, Bullseye was posing as Hawkeye, Bullseye the Daredevil villain. The Mac Gardigan Scorpion version of Venom posed as Spider-Man. Moonstone posed as Captain Marvel. Daken, Wolverine's son, was posing as Wolverine. And again, you had Ares in place of Thor. And you also had the Sentry appear, and another Captain Marvel, referred to as Captain Marvel. But the final piece in the puzzle was when Norman Osborn appeared in one of Iron Man's prototype armors that he had spray painted, basically, or let's say repainted, to look like the American flag, introducing himself as the Iron Patriot, kind of a combination of Captain America and Iron Man. Now, we've already seen the Iron Patriot in the MCU, in Iron Man 3 to be specific, whether you liked it or not, he was there. I do think that there is a chance that we'll see John Walker appear as Norman Osborn's answer to Captain America, the U.S. agent. So Dark Avengers, #1, it was a short series that only ran for about a year and a half, is still easily found at your LCS. And again, you could pick up copies online. All of the series I'm talking about today, by the way, are on the Marvel Unlimited app. You can also, of course, invest in the trade paperback. It's another good read and one that I think was really well done. You really seem to see Norman unravel. Now, this final theory is that the Thor Love and Thunder film will in part be based on Siege. In this story, after about a year and change of Norman's Dark Avengers team and of the Dark Reign storyline that was through all of the Marvel titles more or less at that time, Norman finally loses it and launches an unauthorized attack on Asgard, where Thor lives. But Asgard wasn't a faraway place like it typically has been, both in the comics and in the films. No, at this time in the story, Asgard was on Earth. Now, in Endgame, we saw that Valkyrie had established a new Asgard on Earth. So if Norman Osborn is indeed coming to the MCU, and he is indeed bringing his Dark Avengers with him, Asgard is right there for the taking. Now, that being said, this one I think is really my biggest kind of long shot. Reason being is that Thor Love and Thunder is being filmed right now. For my other two theories to work out, those really have to be kind of built into the Marvel Universe or to the MCU and the TV series, of course, over the course of the next few months and years. And also, Thor Love and Thunder already sounds like it's pretty packed. You've got Christian Bale coming in there as Gore, the God Killer. You've got Jane Foster coming there as the female Thor. So, again, this one might be a long shot, but it may be something that pays off down the road. Just like the other stories that we discussed, back issues of Siege can be found at your local LCS and also online. It's definitely worth checking out, and spec-wise, if this pans out, it could be something that nobody's looking at right now. As I end this session, let me just remind you that I'm not here to talk about comics as an investment. These stories that I discussed with you today, although they're great reads, may or may not pay off. I might be totally off base. As I'm sure many YouTubers who keep telling you this is the next big thing, this is the thing you have to buy a lot of, will be as well. But one thing is for sure. If you're picking up a book or buying a book just to enjoy it, just to read it, and just to appreciate the art and story, you can't go wrong. These are 3 solid series with great stories and great artwork that for many, including myself, was kind of like a second golden age for the Avengers. I want to thank you again for watching this video and listening to my rant, as always. If you like what you've seen, please give me a like button. It only takes a second to do, and I promise it won't hurt you. Better yet, if you like what I'm saying, you could go ahead and subscribe, or even if you don't like what I'm saying, subscribe just to say, hey, what does this guy think he's doing? If you feel inclined to do so, please consider leaving a comment and share this video with your friends and family. Thanks again for listening and for watching. Peace, love, and comics. Good night.